You can read Psalm 23, but until you live it, it remains just word. And life begins right at the first verse. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. That line is not just poetry. It is surrender. It is not decoration for a wall. It is a foundation for a life led by God. David does not say the Lord is a shepherd. He says the Lord is my shepherd. And that is where the power begins. Not when you know about God, but when you belong to Him. Many people in this world believe that God exists, but very few live as though He is leading them day by day. That is the difference between religion and relationship. Like a child walking with their father, not because they know every road, but because they trust the hand that holds them. David was a king, a warrior, a man celebrated by the crowds. Yet here, he calls himself a sheep, not the one giving commands, but the one who follows, not the one in control, but the one who yields. In a world where everyone fights for voice, status, and influence, Psalm 23 begins with letting go. One simple word, the Lord is my shepherd. When you say that, you are stepping off your throne. You are laying down the burden of having to understand everything, of trying to control the outcome. You are placing yourself under the care of the one who sees every path ahead. Maybe today you feel lost, worn out, and empty, not because you lack a shepherd, but because you have not made Him yours. You speak of Him, you sing about Him, but is He truly leading you? Is He really the one shaping your steps today? Or are you still making the plans and hoping He blesses them later? When the Lord is your shepherd, you are no longer driven by pressure. You are led by peace. When He leads, you stop reacting to circumstances and start responding to His voice. A sheep does not need to know the map. It only needs to trust the shepherd. And in following, you find the one thing every soul longs for: contentment. I shall not want, not because everything is perfect, but because you lack nothing that matters. Not because the road is easy, but because you are not walking alone. You no longer have to chase success, approval, or certainty, because when you have the Lord, you have everything. This is not a theory. This is real. And it does not start from a mountaintop. It starts with one simple declaration from a surrendered heart. Lord, you are my shepherd. When you say that, not just with your mouth, but with your life, everything begins to change. Why do we feel so worn out even when we have everything we thought we needed? Why do we keep striving, searching, pushing ourselves until we collapse, yet still feel empty? Could it be that the real issue is not what we lack, but who we haven't made our own? David wrote, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want." We say the words, we quote them in church, we hear them in songs. But the truth is, many of us are still trying to lead ourselves through life. We love the idea of God as a shepherd, but we resist surrendering the map. We want His protection without His direction. We want His provision, but still fight to stay in control. And maybe that's why we feel so anxious, so tired, so lost. Not because God is absent, but because we've never fully let Him in. You see, there's a difference between admiring the shepherd and following Him. There's a difference between being religious and being led. You can read the Bible, go to church, and still be walking in circles, wondering why your soul is restless. But when you say, "The Lord is my shepherd," and mean it when you truly let Him lead, everything begins to align. That's when peace replaces pressure. That's when direction replaces confusion. That's when you stop trying to carry a life you were never meant to carry on your own. Can I ask you something personal? Right now, as you're listening, deep in your heart, do you sense that hunger for something more? Do you feel that gentle tug, like God is inviting you to stop striving and start trusting? If so, I want to know you're here. I want to know I'm not speaking into silence. So if you're ready, if you're willing to say, I want to live differently, I want to follow, not just function, I want to surrender, not just survive, then type it in the comments. Just type, I'm ready. Or if you can't even find the words yet, just type one, because that one moment of honesty might be the first step toward a completely new life. And when I see your comment, I'll know I'm not walking this road alone. I'll know your heart is leaning in, and I can't tell you how much that means to me. As someone who pours their soul into these messages, your presence, your real, living, breathing presence is a gift. Thank you. Because when you comment, you're not just showing up for me, you're showing up for yourself. You're saying, yes, I want to change. And that decision, that tiny moment of faith, might be the beginning of a lifelong transformation. The Lord is near. The shepherd is calling. Will you answer? Just type, I'm ready, or type 1, and let heaven and earth bear witness that today something shifted inside you. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. Those words may sound gentle, but behind them is the firm and loving hand of a shepherd who knows what constant motion is doing to your soul. Rest is not a weakness. It is not a sign you have failed. It is the mercy of a God who refuses to let you run yourself into the ground. In a world that worships productivity, where your value feels tied to your pace, God steps in and says, stop. Lie down. Let me restore what your striving has drained. We do not always recognize this kind of intervention because it does not look like breakthrough. It looks like silence. It looks like slow mornings and unanswered calls. It looks like closed doors and missed opportunities. But what if the delay is not the enemy? What if it is the shepherd stepping in to protect you from battles you are not ready to fight? You see, you cannot receive clarity if you are always chasing noise. You cannot hear God's voice if you are constantly running ahead. And some of you have been pushing so hard to make things happen that you have missed the very thing that could heal you. His voice does not compete with chaos. It waits for stillness. When God makes you lie down, it is because He cares more about your calling than your calendar. He will pause you before you break. He will close the door before you collapse. And when you finally stop fighting, when you release the grip and let Him lead you beside still waters, something begins to shift. Suddenly the storm inside starts to calm. The fear starts to lift. The exhaustion begins to lift, not because the circumstances changed, but because your posture changed. You stopped striving and started trusting. That is what rest truly is. It is not just physical stillness. It is spiritual alignment. It is the decision to say, I do not need to run today to prove anything. I do not need to chase what God has promised to provide. When you lie down at His command, you are declaring that He is enough and that you do not have to outrun grace. You just need to follow it. So the next time you feel like nothing is moving, do not panic. Do not assume you missed your moment. Maybe the green pasture is not the absence of motion. but the fullness of presence. Maybe this is where He speaks to you again. Maybe this is where He reveals the next step. And maybe, just maybe, this is where your soul finally breathes. Rest is not laziness. It is obedience. It is the shepherd saying, "Let me take it from here." Will you trust Him enough to stop? Will you believe that what looks like a pause might actually be the beginning of real power? Let Him make you lie down. Let Him lead you beside peace. That is where restoration begins. In the world we live in today, the more you do, the more valuable people say you are. Productivity has become the new idol. If you are not moving, they say you are falling behind. If you are not producing, they say you are wasting time. But that is not how God measures worth. That is not how the shepherd leads. He does not reward burnout. He blesses rendez. I once heard a man say to me after a message, "Billy, I kept asking God why nothing was moving, why every door stayed shut. And then I realized I had not sat still long enough to hear Him knock." That stayed with me, because so many of us are crying out for God to speak, but we do not stop long enough to listen. We pray, then scroll, we worship, then worry. We ask for direction, but refuse to pause. And yet, the voice of God does not compete. He does not shout over the noise. He waits until the heart gets quiet. I want to ask you something real. Are you tired? I do not mean physically. I mean in your soul. Do you feel like you are running in every direction but still stuck in the same place? That may not be failure. That may be God's mercy. Because He is not trying to punish you. He is trying to preserve you. The shepherd knows when the sheep need to lie down. And sometimes He will allow your plans to stall just so you can learn to lean. Rest is not a delay in your purpose. It is preparation for it. A soldier does not go into battle without time to recover, and neither should you. So if God is asking you to wait, it is not because He is absent. It is because He is building something in you before He builds something through you. Stillness is not the absence of destiny. It is the soil where destiny is rooted. If this is speaking to your heart, I want to know. I want to see who is out there listening, letting these words sink in. Would you comment and let me know? Type, "I hear you," or just type 1. Because knowing you are there, leaning in, hearing these words that matters more than you know. You see, I believe God is speaking to you right now, not to hold you back, but to hold you together. He wants you whole before He wants you busy. He wants you grounded before He sends you forward. So do not resist the stillness. Receive it. Do not push through the quiet. Press into it. This may be the very place where the answer finally comes. This may be the turning point, not of your schedule, but of your spirit. And the one who learns to rest, when God says rest, will have the strength to rise. When God says go, He restoreth my soul. That one line holds more power than 1,000 sermons because it speaks to the part of you no one else sees. It is not about restoring your reputation or your schedule. It is about the core of who you are. The soul is where the real battle lies. You can dress it up on the outside, show up with a smile, speak all the right words. But if your soul is worn thin, everything else eventually cracks. I have met people who looked strong, spoke with confidence, moved with purpose, but inside they were barely holding together. And what they needed was not a reset, they needed restoration. God does not just patch you up and send you back out. He does not apply surface-level solutions to deep wounds. When He restores, He goes down to the foundation. He touches the places where fear settled, where shame made a home, where lies took root. And He begins to renew from within. This kind of restoration cannot be rushed. It is not about feeling better for a moment. It is about becoming whole again. The kind of whole that lets you breathe without pretending, the kind of whole that makes you walk without hiding, the kind of whole that comes not from forgetting what happened, but from realizing God can use what broke you to build you. You see, restoration is not about going back to who you were. It is about becoming who you were meant to be. And God does not consult your past to decide your future. He does not need approval from your mistakes to move you forward. What the enemy tried to use to destroy you, God will use to strengthen you. And when He restores your soul, He does not just fix what was wrong. He builds something stronger, something pure, something sacred. It is personal. It is holy. And it is possible. No matter how far you feel, no matter how silent your prayers seem, God is not finished. His hands are still reaching. His mercy is still working. His grace is still flowing. And if you are walking through a season where everything feels fragile, where your faith is quiet and your hope is weak, this is the exact place where restoration begins. Not when you have it all together, but when you finally stop pretending that you do. God meets the broken not with shame, but with healing. He comes not to remind you of what you lost, but to show you what can still grow. And when He restores your soul, you will know it. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. Not because pain disappears, but because peace remains. That is what God does. Él restores. And no one else can reach that deep. Only the shepherd knows the path that leads from brokenness to wholeness. Only He can turn ashes into beauty. Only He can whisper to the wounded heart and make it live again. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Those words are not just comforting, they are confronting, because they remind us that once God restores the soul, He does not leave us to wander. He leads. He does not fix you just so you can go back to your old ways. He brings you back so you can walk a new path, a better path, a path that brings honor to His name. And here is where many people struggle. They want restoration without redirection. They want healing without surrender. But when God touches your life, it comes with a calling. He does not only restore you for your sake, He does it for His name's sake. That means your story is not just about you anymore. Your decision, your direction, your next steps, they now carry His signature. You walk, but His name walks with you. And because His name is on you, He does not take shortcuts. He does not lead through comfort. He leads through purpose. That is why the path may not always make sense to you. It may not be popular. It may not be easy, but it is righteous. And righteousness is not perfection. It is alignment. It is not about earning His favor. It is about walking in it. Some paths are narrow. Some are steep. Some feel like they lead in the wrong direction. But when the shepherd is guiding, you can trust that every turn, every delay, every closed door is part of a higher design. God never wastes a step. I once spoke with a woman who had lost everything: her business, her home, her health, and she asked me why God would let her go through all that after she gave her life to Him. I told her, sometimes the shepherd does not lead you around the fire. He leads you through it, because it is in the fire that what is not meant to stay gets burned away. It is in the fire that purity is formed. And if his name is on you, you can be sure he is preparing something through you. Paths of righteousness are not about smooth roads. They are about holy roads. They are roads where you learn to walk by faith, not by sight. Roads where character is shaped, roads where pride dies and dependence is born. And when you walk those roads, people will see something different. They will see a life that is not led by impulse, not swayed by culture, not driven by fear, but guided by something deeper, something sacred, something unshakable. You do not need to see the whole map. You just need to take the next step in the direction of his voice. Because the one who leads you does not lead to confusion. He leads to righteousness. And he is not dragging you. He is forming you. He is shaping your pace. He is aligning your life with a purpose far greater than comfort. So if the road is narrow, walk it anyway. If the path is lonely, follow it still. Because the one who calls you by name is the same one who walks before you. And where he leads, goodness always follows. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Those are not the words of someone living in denial. That is the voice of someone who has seen darkness up close, someone who has felt the weight of fear press in, yet still chose to walk. I remember a man telling me once, Billy, I thought God abandoned me when the valley came. I thought the shadow meant I was forgotten. But in that place, when no one else stayed, he stayed, and that changed everything. The valley is not a punishment. It is a passage. David does not say, if I walk through the valley. He says, though, because valleys are part of the journey, pain is not optional, but fear is. And that is the secret most people miss. Fear only lives where the presence of God is questioned. But when you know he is with you, fear has nowhere to stand. I want to ask you something. Have you walked through a valley recently? Maybe not with mountains and cliffs, but in your heart, the valley of grief, the valley of loss, the valley of betrayal, the valley where the night is long and answers feel far. If you have, I want you to know this one truth. A shadow only exists when light is present. Even when the valley feels cold, even when the shadows stretch long, they are proof that the light is near. The shepherd does not abandon the sheep when the road gets hard. In fact, that is where he draws closer. He does not watch from a distance. He walks beside. And if that is true, then you can take another step. You do not have to camp in the sorrow. You do not have to build a home in what was meant to pass. You can keep walking. And if this word is for you, if you feel like the valley has been your address, I want to know you are here. Type, I'm still walking. Or just leave a simple 1 inch the comments. Because when I see that, I know this message is meeting someone right where they are. And that matters. Not just to me, but to heaven. Because even in your lowest place, you are not invisible. You are not alone. When God is with you, the shadows lose their power. The fear loses its grip. And you walk, not because the road is easy, but because the presence is real. So do not stop. Do not turn back. Keep walking. Keep believing. Keep trusting. The shepherd who called you into the valley is the same one who will lead you through it. And what waits on the other side is not just survival, but testimony. Not just endurance, but glory. He is with you, right now, right here. That is enough. Thou preparest a table before me, in the presence of mine enemies. That is not just poetic language. That is a declaration of victory in the middle of conflict. God does not wait for your enemies to disappear before He blesses you. He does not hide His provision until the storm passes. He sets the table right there in the tension, in the attack, in the presence of those who doubted, betrayed, and tried to break you. That is how confident He is. He is not reacting to your circumstances. He is revealing His authority through them. The table is not a reaction to the enemy. It is a strategy from the shepherd. And if you have ever felt like you were surrounded, if you have walked through seasons where opposition increased the moment you obeyed, then understand this truth. The resistance around you is often a sign that you are closer to the table than you think. You do not need to fight for a seat. You were invited. You do not need to explain yourself. The shepherd already knows. And when he prepares a table, it is not just for food. It is for fellowship. It is a statement that you are not abandoned. You are chosen. And then comes the next line. Thou anointest my head with oil. That image, though beautiful, carry deep meaning. In ancient times, a shepherd would pour oil on the head of the sheep, not for ceremony, but for protection. Insects and parasites would attack through the ears and nose, sometimes burrowing in so deeply they would drive the sheep mad. The oil was a shield. It guarded the places too vulnerable to defend alone. God does the same for you. His anointing is not just a moment in church. It is a covering over your mind, your thoughts, your soul. It is His hand saying, no weapon formed against you will prosper. When He anoints you, it is not because you earned it. It is because He saw something in you worth using. And then David says, my cup runneth over. This is not barely enough. This is not just survival. This is overflow. Not because life is perfect, but because God is present. When He fills your cup, it is not for display. It is so full that others are refreshed just by being near you. That is the kind of life the shepherd gives. A table in conflict, oil in weakness, overflow in surrender. And if you are in a place right now where the battle seems louder than the blessing, hold on. The table is being set. The cup is not dry. The oil is flowing. And God is not waiting to act. He is already moving right in front of the ones who thought you would not make it. Right in the place they thought you would fall. That is the confidence of the shepherd, and when you belong to Him, you sit down in peace while others wonder how you are still standing. That is not pride. That is promise. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. That is not a wish. That is a promise. David is not hoping for the best. He is declaring a certainty, and not because his life was painless. David knew betrayal. He knew failure. He knew what it was like to walk through dark seasons and silent nights. But even then, he learned something deeper. What follows you shapes how you walk. If you believe shame follows you, you will walk in hiding. If you think judgment is behind you, you will walk in fear. But when you know that goodness and mercy are chasing you, something shifts. You stop glancing over your shoulder with anxiety. You start moving with confidence. Not confidence in yourself, but in the one who walks behind you. Goodness opens doors you did not earn. Mercy closes doors you should have walked through but didn't because God protected you. Together, they guard your steps, they rewrite your pace, and they remind you daily that you are not being stalked by your past. You are being escorted by divine favor. I once spoke with a man who said, "Billy, I keep thinking God is disappointed in me. I fail. I fall, and I assume I have stepped outside His love." I looked at him and said, "Son, you cannot outrun the shepherd. His goodness is not limited by your performance. His mercy is not turned off by your struggle. That is the power of grace. It follows you even when you try to run, even when you stop walking, even when your faith is weak. Grace does not wait for perfect condition. It shows up on your worst day and says, I am still here. And if that is true, then every step you take is covered. Not just the ones on Sunday, not just when you feel holy, but all the days, the tired days, the doubting days, the silent days. You are not alone. You are not forgotten, and you are not hunted by shame. You are followed by favor. That is what sets you apart. That is your new identity. Not orphaned, but claimed, not wandering, but covered. And when you understand that, you walk different, you pray different, you breathe different, because you know the story is not being written by your mistakes. It is being carried by His mercy. Surely is not a poetic word. It is a faith word. It says, I do not have to see it to believe it. I do not have to feel it to trust it. Goodness and mercy are behind me. Every single step. That is why I can walk forward, even when I do not have all the answers, because I know what is behind me, and I know who is with me, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. David is not visiting. He is not passing through. He is not attending a service and walking away unchanged. He is moving in. He is settling his soul. He is anchoring his identity. The word dwell means to remain, to stay, to make a home. This is not a temporary place. This is not rented faith. This is ownership. This is covenant. David is saying, I am not going back. I am not returning to fear. I am not living between two addresses. The house of the Lord is now where I belong. And that, my friend, is the final and greatest secret of Psalm 23. You were never meant to wander without shelter. You were created to dwell in a presence that does not leave, a presence that does not shift with emotions or conditions. The house of the Lord is not a building. It is the nearness of God. It is His covering. It is the place where your soul finds rest. And when David says forever, he means it. Not just until trouble comes, not until your feelings change, not until someone offends you. Forever. That means when the days are long and the road is hard, your heart has a place to return to. When you are tired of pretending and your strength is gone, you still have a home. Not just a place to hide, but a place to be healed. Not just a roof over your head, but a refuge for your soul. And this changes how you see everything. Because when you know you have a home in Him, you stop chasing identity in other places. You stop looking for approval from people who were never meant to define you. You stop compromising to fit into rooms God never called you to enter. You live differently. You speak differently. You walk into each day knowing you are not alone. You have been claimed, and this is the hope that cannot be shaken, that no matter where life takes you, His presence goes before you, and His goodness follows behind. You are covered on all sides. You are never homeless in the spirit. And when the valley tries to pull you back into fear, when the lies try to tell you that you do not belong, you declare again, I dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That means even when you fail, you fall forward into grace. Even when you doubt, you are still held. Even when you feel unworthy, His love does not release you. You were never saved to wander. You were brought home, and the invitation stands for you today, not to visit, but to stay, not to observe, but to belong. Lay down the identity of the orphan. Step out of the role of the outsider. You are His. His presence is your address. His promises are your foundation. His voice is your covering. You can stop running now. You can stop striving. You can stop trying to earn what has already been given. The shepherd is not far, He is near, and He is not just leading you through green pastures and dark valleys. He is leading you home forever. That is the ending of Psalm 23, and that is the beginning of a life truly lived